everyone, once again, and welcome to the second part of our conference. I hope that you are okay and that you managed to participate in the first part of this great event today, brought to you by Media and Learning Association. In this second part, we will focus on hot and important topic of pre-service teacher education in digital media and information literacy. And I am welcoming four of our speakers coming from Austria, Germany, Belgium, and Spain. So first, Sergej Gil, a research assistant on media education and digital storytelling, expert also in relation to digital tools, and coming from Heidelberg University of Education, Germany. Sergej, welcome. We hope that you are here. Followed by Christian Swertz, a professor of media education, University of Vienna, Institute for Bildungswissenschaft from Austria, expert in data protection, digital classroom, focusing on new challenges in media pedagogy, and I hope that his students will be joining as well.
I hope so too. Nice to meet you.
Hi,
hello
Christian.
Everybody.
Welcome once again. Third, Pieter Demeyer, lecturer from Artevelde University of Applied Sciences. He mainly teaches content and didactics of society, citizenship, and media literacy. And it's interesting that he has background in history, geography, and political science. Pieter, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Great, welcome. And finally, the fourth speaker will be Professor Charo Sádaba Chalezquer, School of Communication, University of Navarra, Pamplona, Spain, expert in technology communication to adolescents and children. Professor Charo, welcome also to our session.
Hi everyone.
All speakers know the rules, so please try to keep within 12 to 14 minutes so that we have enough time for the Q&A session. In the first part, it was so interesting. We had so many questions and so little time. So time is of huge importance for us today in the next hour and a half. Thank you again to you all joining us, especially from some other countries. And I saw that we have participants from USA, from Brazil. So please do let us know if you just joined us. And we will start with the first session with Sergej Gil. As I said, next 12 to 14 minutes are yours, Sergej.
Thank you very much, Igor. And thanks again for inviting me as the first speaker into the pre-service teacher education program. I will share my screen with you and start right off with my presentation. Just give me a moment.
Hope it is working.
Yeah, it's working. I'm still looking for the right desktop to share with, so it's not the wrong one. I think it's this one. Share. You should be able to see my presentation, right? Perfect.
Everything fine.
Okay, thank you again. And I'll start. Not sure if you see the chat here. No, you don't see the chat, right? It's not in there. Good, perfect. Again, my name is Sergej Gil. I'm from the Heidelberg University of Education, and I'm a research assistant as well as a lecturer there. And I'm gonna give a brief introduction and how we structure basically all our media literacy courses and classes at the University of Education, and talk a little bit about the challenges we also have in developing them, and as well as challenging the 21st century skills and digital literacy skills that we have all in common, basically. And let's go to first. I'm gonna first start with the challenges we have when it comes to policies and frameworks in curriculum development, and how that comes into play when we talk about pre-service education. And since 2017, we have a new agenda, basically from the state of Baden-Württemberg, which is the strategy for digitalization, which also has a little aspect on pre-service teacher or teacher education in general. And the problem with that is that it actually has nothing to say about pre-service education. So they really keep it very short and broad when it comes to teacher education. This is basically about getting teachers fit for the digital age, which is not much to work with when it comes to their strategy. But this is only on the aspects of teacher education. They have a lot of talk when it comes to the development of the school curriculums for student development of their digital literacy skills. And this goes way beforehand. It actually started in 2012, but it got reintroduced in 2016 along with some other principles. And this school curriculums, which is basically a whole agenda for part of the agenda for school education, includes some guiding principles on media literacy, which has been new since 2012 and has been reintroduced with some upgrades or updates, and has been anchored directly into the respective subjects plans within a thematic context, which has been new. And since we don't have classes in school for media literacy, we only have the subject of computer science or informatics, as it's called, but it has only tackled some little aspects of media literacy. So it has been introduced as a anchor point for every subject in school, not just for one class in school. I'll just show a little the guiding principle, so that we know that what the framework is we are talking about. Just a short 4 aspects about how we need to enable our students to select media sensibly, how to reflect critically on the media that is offered by them, and how to work with this media responsibly. And last point was to shape their own media presence, especially in social media, in a way that is so self-determined and critically reflected way. I'm gonna go back to that. This is really also very broad in nature, but we need to consider that this is just the starting point from where they go into the framework development, and which I'm gonna go next to, but first I'm gonna talk about the university curriculum, which we have developed ourselves. But the point is that we didn't have much to start off when it comes to the agenda that has been offered for the pre-service education. So we kind of went to the curriculum that has been offered for schools to see what do we really need to teach to tackle on when it comes to teacher education and pre-service education. And what we are very proud of is that we finally, in 2021, so last year, finally managed to integrate a mandatory module for the fundamentals of media education into our curriculum for teacher education. We had some classes before it, which have been optional. But this is the first time that we managed to make it mandatory for every student that is in pre-service education. They have to go through our module when it comes to teacher education, which I'll be talking to a bit later on. This is I'm not going to talk about a lot about that, but this is just a little picture of the aspects that students have are supposed to learn during their school time. And this is from the framework for student media literacy for every grade from 1st to 12th grade. And I'm not going to go into detail, but as you can see, this is really just the topics, not all the detailed content that they're going to teach or need to learn. But as you can already see, they start off with simple things like I can go to a website and surf the internet, to something like I can structure, present, evaluate, demanding, and research in a self-determined and goal-oriented manner according to scientific standards, which is quite elaborate even for a grade 11 to 12. And at the same time, if we want to tackle how to teach these competencies to students, we obviously need our teachers to know all these competencies as well, and at the same time know how to teach them as well. So since we don't have any frameworks to work with when it comes to teacher education that have been provided, we have developed them ourselves or worked with something that has already been there. So we go to the next one. This is the structure of the curriculum for our teachers program for the bachelor's degree. And so we see here that the module that I've been talking about is centered in the third semester. Like I said, it's mandatory, and it consists of one lecture and one seminar that I have to go through. And in the fourth and fifth semester, they can also have some electives in other aspects of media education that goes along with that. And the other semesters are mostly focused on other aspects of teacher education from their subjects, and some educational science and some other courses they can elect to. And what comes also into play is the certificate, which is offered by the Heidelberg School of Education, which I shortened here to HSE, which is similar to what we offer in the mandatory modules, but has some different structure. And it is the difference, one of the biggest differences that is also offered for the University of Heidelberg, not just for the pedagogical university that I'm working at, but it's more of a more open to the other university as well. And what we do in our program for the mandatory program is that the lecture is basically tackling all the theoretical base that we need to supply the students with. We start with some social institutional aspects that come along with that, and the discourses that are more recent. And we also talked about terminology, which is also important when it comes to media education, especially in German. We have so many different terminologies like Medienerziehung, Medienbildung, Medien competence, and so forth. So it's we need really to tackle that as from the get-go. And then we also get to talk to some fields of education and the current topics like about social media, gender, games, mostly basic the recent topics that might be interesting to talk to. This changes mostly. The first three don't change as much as the last one when it comes to the semesters. And the course overview shows goes along with the lecture and is more centered around some digital aspects of teaching media literacy in school. We have something like mobile learning, media production, educational technology in the classroom. So, and we try to focus more on online and hybrid learning, which has been more recently more important than some other aspects of it. And as I mentioned also, we have the electives for the fourth and fifth semester, and which kind of deepen what we have already established in the third semester. We can choose between different courses and kind of choose what you want to deepen yourself. It's not, but it's only optional. They don't have to choose any of these courses. They can also do something completely different in that matter. The other model that I was mentioning was from the Heidelberg School of Education, and it's in some ways similar, but the Heidelberg School of Education is kind of a bridging center between the University of Education and the University of Heidelberg. So it offers their classes as well to our students and as well to the students from the university. Because they don't have their own media literacy classes. So this is a shared program in this case, but it's completely optional. So this is the biggest difference. We start, in this case, we start off with an introductory course. It's very similar to what is done in the lecture mostly, but it's more focused on self-study and self-education instead of being just an input-oriented lecture. for the students. So it's 1/3 input and the other 2/3 are more peer-to-peer learning and self-regulated learning in this course. Then they have the choice of many elective courses that from the aspect of new media and subject classes, media literacy or computer science. So we're trying to broaden a bit, so it's not only centered to media literacy. They can choose something like learning to program with Python or robotics classes that are offered to them, or something else. It's kind of similar to the elective courses we also offer in the 4th and 5th grade, but it's, like I said, it's more optional and it's a bit more broad in this sense. What we don't do on our program is they have a final project course. It's like where you can choose one aspect that you think most interesting. It might be a medium, it might be a pedagogical method, or even a topic that you're most interested in, and develop a program, media educational program for students, for your classes, as a proof of concept that you've learned basically what has been done in the introductory and the elective courses you've done before. At the end of it, if you have done at least the introductory course, 2 electives, and the project course, you get a certificate at the end. So this is also one incentive that might be motivating students to do it. And the next steps basically, because we have now established that we have this regular and mandatory module with some electives, additional electives to that. But this is just the beginning, obviously, because it's mainly structured around technology. So we have a lot of challenges that we still need to tackle when it comes to including more aspects of like critical media literacy. So, for example, we have not a lot of aspects when it comes to something like what is about sustainability and digitization, what about race and gender, and what about diversity and mental health. These are all aspects and challenges that we still want to include in our classes, and I have to still figure out how to best fit that into the curriculum and the schedule. We also want to make our programs more engaging. We have some running programs about cross media and journalism for pre-service teachers, where they can develop their own journalism programs as well to see how this works out. And we also have some programs on digital storytelling that I'm working on, where we want to include students more. And at the same time, we want to collaborate more with other institutions. The HSC is one of them, also the Heidelberg University. We have also the Columbia University that we are working in a program together about critical media literacy. And we have a program with some other institutions about media development programs, about music teachings, for example. And the last is that we still work on a lot of some research programs about critical media literacy and digital storytelling for teacher education, where we also develop some new ways of methods to include new ways of teaching into teacher education and teachings. And that's it from my thank you very much. And yes.
Thank you, Sergej, for this great introduction and from the perspective of the Heidelberg School of Education. We have already a first question from Agnaldo. What is the question? Just a minute. The mandatory course, is it more theoretical or practical? What about the pre-service teachers' engagement on this mandatory course?
Yes, it's more theoretical in nature. This is what I mentioned when it comes to engagement. We really need to find more methods, or maybe even present more projects to the students that might be more engaging, more activity oriented. We have been mostly focused on how to get the theory down for now, and still need to think how we can make it more engaging in some other aspects as well.
Inglika is grateful for the insightful presentation. Sergej, I hope you already read the chat. Tugba, do pre-service teachers take any other course regarding to information technology use?
If they want to, most of the courses are optional. They can, they have a choice of all kind of, they have one module that is basically open to all kind of courses they can choose from, but it's not mandatory that I have to choose any other courses on information literacy or data literacy or even technology if they don't want to.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that the overall experience from Germany is very interesting, as you have so many different experiences from lenders. And what is maybe here the advantage or the special situation about Baden-Württemberg from your experience in comparison to other lenders?
Well, I think one of the most important issues here is that we have a University of Education. This is very special because all the other states don't have that. So we are more focused on education and pedagogical and didactical methods. And while most universities have that more narrowed down to some little aspects, I think this is one of our greatest strengths that we have to offer. And yeah, I think this is one of the most important aspects. Okay.
Any other questions for Sergej? Do you maybe enroll international students as well?
We have some, yes. We especially the Heidelberg School of Education, which is a part of our institution, has some international programs from Erasmus together, but also from, like we said before, the Columbia University students also come and have some classes for one semester. Yeah, and they get also to teach some classes as well.
In the first session, I don't know if you were able to participate. We had a small discussion about the understanding of the topics, digital literacy, media and information literacy. Do you have any type of these challenges in the first sessions with your students?
Yes, definitely. We challenged that at the beginning in both modules, the mandatory and the optional one, where we really have to first figure out what's the terminology we want to work with, what are the real challenges we really need to tackle, and not really about the framework or the policies that prescribe it.
Yeah, I think that your experience is especially valuable for us because you mentioned already the topics in German, such as Medienerziehung, Medienbildung. Yeah, I think it's even more complex from your perspective in comparison to some other countries where it's more easier to understand these challenges.
I don't know if it's really easier, but we have this long tradition of Medienerziehung, which has came even before when the media literacy and classes and stuff like that. And this is especially when it comes to the security and safety of our students. So this has been a big topic in Germany, even back in the 90s when, and it's still a big issue when it comes to, for example, video games and media preventions of stuff like that. Yeah.
Thank you, Sergej, for this first presentation. We hope that some others will follow also the example from Germany and Baden-Württemberg for the mandatory approach on the media literacy. I think this is something we need to definitely tackle in the time to come. We are now asking our dear colleague Christian Swertz, Professor of Media Education, University of Vienna. Christian, are you here? Everything is working?
Yeah.
Welcome once again.
Thanks very much.
The floor is yours.
Okay. Well, I think it connects quite good to what Sergej just said. In Austria, the consideration of media literacy is recommended for all educational institutions, including kindergarten and university. And additionally, digital basic education was introduced as a dedicated school subject 6 weeks ago. Currently, pre-service teacher education programs, so curricula for the school subject are developed. So we are getting a complete curriculum on digital basic education in the teacher training programs. So the political framework in Austria seems well set, but it is a political framework and thus charged with political interests and ideologies that cause challenges. And I would like to illustrate these challenges by discussing two examples, a smaller one and a bigger challenge. And along the way, I will add some suggestions for pathways to tackle these challenges. The small challenge is the confusion of media literacy and e-learning. And as far as understood, you already discussed this in the earlier sessions today. Most politicians, business people, and journalists are convinced that students are taught media literacy if they use digital media for learning. And as a result of communication in the public sphere, this applies also to many teachers. But as you know, using digital media to learn languages or sciences does not lead to an increase of media literacy. Instead, the result of using digital media in e-learning is that students get used to computer technology. The message of doing e-learning this way is that digital media itself guarantees the quality of teaching and learning, and digital media are thus valuable. By framing digital media as valuable, the acceptance of digital media is enforced. We can assume that the acceptance of digital media is the goal of business people and many politicians, since the assumption that digital media do improve learning has been falsified in hundreds of studies since the 1970s. What students learn with e-learning is how to operate media. They are made servants of media, or in a more provocative terms, they are made media slaves. What is enforced this way is called cybernetic ideology in media pedagogy. The core idea of cybernetic ideology, the core ideas of cybernetic ideology are that everything in the world, things, life, thinking, is information processing, that everything can be controlled by control loops, and that the future can be predicted by analyzing information. Typical expressions of this ideology are that computers can or might think, and that artificial intelligence systems should control societies. The first idea is just stupid, while the second one is actually dangerous, since the only way to reach this goal is to adopt people to technology. And that is a goal that would drive any decent educator to despair. It is not very difficult to tackle this issue in teacher training programs. Usually, it is sufficient to introduce two terms. The first term is media, connected with the difference between teaching with media and teaching about media. This is usually understood intuitively. The second term is media literacy. With media literacy, we discuss teaching about media. This includes the reflection of media and the use of media for one's own purposes. To teach the reflection of media, it is necessary to convey concepts. Cybernetic ideology is one example for that. Agenda setting, media convergence, or the public sphere are other ones. To teach how to use media for one's own purposes, it is first necessary to ask people to develop goals they want to reach with media, and it is second necessary to show them how to design a media environment that meets their goals, and it is third necessary to show them how to use media for participating in public debates. It is no coincidence that own goals and public debates are not mentioned in the 21st century skills concept of the OECD, but they are mentioned in the UNESCO's Media and Information Literacy program. So the first challenge can be tackled by rejecting the 21st century skills and referring to UNESCO's Media and Information Literacy concept. The second challenge is that hardly anybody in the culture I live in has an idea of the meaning of the term critical media literacy. And I would like to demonstrate that by doing a little critical reflection of media. The example for that I choose for that is fake news. What most politicians, business people, and journalists suggest is that teachers should teach students how to spot fake news. Let's take a critical look at that. What happens when you do that? By teaching how to spot fake news, politicians, business people, and journalists turn the problem of fake news into a personal problem. Students are made responsible for solving the problem. They should bear the costs and the risks. But if there are costs and risks, we can assume there's profit too. So who ranks in the profit? Fake news are there for a simple reason. Fake news are a proven way to generate attention. And attention is a raw material of data capitalism. With means of production, like data mining tools, this raw material can be turned into products. These products can be sold to generate profit. This profit is taken by only a few private persons. The profits are privatized while the costs are generalized. So, if we teach students how to identify fake news, we enforce the acceptance of this business model of tech companies. This business model is based on generalizing costs and privatizing profits, a scheme that market fetishists like to use to maximize profits, not exactly a new idea. In humanities, this structure is understood as capitalistic ideology. And the capitalistic ideology is based on a certain concept of private property. Teaching this problem to pre-service teachers in such a way that they can teach it later on is a great challenge. This is because the concept of private property has been so deeply anchored in people's minds, especially with the help of commercial media in general and digital media in particular, that most people cannot even begin to imagine a different view. This challenge can be tackled with a similar strategy as the first one, but in this case, it is more promising to start with practice. Teaching pre-service teachers how to set up a media environment they can control themselves, and teaching them how to deploy that environment in their community for political communication is a good starting point, since it offers evidence for the argument that a responsible human use of media is possible. After that, they can connect terms like Californian ideology and data religion to their experiences much easier. Californian ideology is a term introduced by Barbrook and Cameron in 1995 for the integration of capitalist ideology, cybernetic ideology by means of New Age thinking that actually drives the owners of Alphabet, Apple, Amazon, Meta, and Microsoft. And data religion is a religion first extensively advocated by Harari in 2015 and can be understood as an evolution of the Californian ideology. When teachers master these terms, they can opt for alternative practices. They become able to creatively shape their media environment for teaching and learning. And this includes the option to just avoid any contact with digital media, even in the classroom. So to conclude, from a pedagogical point of view that puts people in the center, it is necessary to teach terms that are suitable for reflecting media, and it is necessary to probe practices for the self-determined and creative use of media in pre-service teacher education. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christian, and especially for the time, because we have now more minutes for the discussion. And I'm glad that you referred again to some questions that we raised in the first part, although you didn't participate. It's like you knew what we were discussing. So maybe I'll ask the first question, and then definitely I'm asking all other colleagues to prepare their questions. The first thing is, when you mentioned that the use of digital media for learning, it does not lead to increase of media literacy. What is your personal experience in the work with students in relation to this?
It's pretty difficult to challenge people and students to reflect their own media practices. So usually it's a good point to start courses with the reflection of the own media practices and to start thinking about the own media practices, and then start to think about what I do with myself if I use media the way I do.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So at the start of your session, you said that Austria is really an example, and we saw it previously also from the previous experience. You were maybe one of the first countries in Europe that had a total approach to media literacy, and you stated this at the very beginning of your presentation today. But what are their weak points in this model from your experience?
Yeah, well, I can explain this with the curriculum for the school subject as an example. The Ministry for Education invited an expert group to develop this curriculum, and the expert group recommended to organize a curriculum around a concept that has been developed a few years ago, which is called the Frankfurt Triangle. And the Frankfurt Triangle has been developed by media scientists, media education scientists, and computer scientists. So there has been a long process for negotiations and discussions, and a common concept has been developed. And in this concept, the different perspectives on media were integrated in a common concept. And this common concept that integrates individual interest, society, and technical dimension was set as the core of the curriculum. After the expert group handed over this curriculum to the ministry, the colleagues from tech industry and from computer sciences intervened, and they turned this quite balanced curriculum into a kind of informatics or computer science program. So most of the critical aspects, Sergej already mentioned that most of these critical aspects and the idea of self-reflecting the own use of media were drawn out of the curriculum. And what we have now is highly focused on learning how to program, learning how to set up a computer, what are the core components of a computer and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Media culture is hardly mentioned. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the core challenge because most people will not become developers. They will not code, but they will use media in everyday life. They will participate in a media culture. Mm-hmm. So it is necessary to give them means that allows them to reflect the media culture they live in.
Can you maybe also list some courses that are at the moment present at University of Vienna that include media literacy, media education in any type of
ways? Well, in the moment actually this term there's only one course which is about digital media education, and since I teach this course, you can imagine it's more focused on critical reflection and concepts. But since the school subject was introduced at the beginning of September, it obviously becomes necessary to prepare teachers to teach this school subject. So a work group that creates a curriculum for the teacher training, and the teacher training program is set up. So currently a 96 credit point program is set up for teacher training. Mm-hmm. That's currently additionally to prepare teachers that are actually now started to teach digital basic education at school. Further education programs are set up. So we have a further education program, a 30 credit point program, which includes quite different aspects of media literacy, but is focused on digital literacy, so informatics. And we are setting up a curriculum for teacher training, a 96 program, and the faculty for computer science is responsible for developing this curriculum. And hardly people from media history, media sociology, media philosophy, media psychology, or media education are involved in the development.
There is one important question that we also need to ask, and it's connected to the assessment of all these programs and evaluation. So do you have any type of these activities? Do you assess? And can you maybe reflect also to the after pandemic time in comparison to pre-pandemic time? What has changed in your personal experience while working with students and using all these technologies in order to increase the quality of the process?
Yeah. Yeah, there are two things. First, the development of curricula is a political process. So what we are observing now is political negotiations. Well, evaluating the result of political evaluations is an interesting issue. Usually we do that later on by some critical reflections. I think that has become kind of a common sport in educational sciences to do critical reflection of governmentality and governance and stuff like that, but it's always later on. So an evaluation of the program didn't really take place so far. The second question is about teaching with digital media before and after the pandemic. I think there is a major difference between universities and schools in some respect. So the universities are currently turning back to face-to-face teaching. And this is actually forced, interestingly, against empirical evidence. In educational sciences, we are evaluating our results, we are collecting statistics about students, and the results in the lockdown terms were pretty clear. We had more active students than ever, and we had the best evaluation results ever. So the conclusion would be we continue to teach online. We are better if we could teach online, obviously. But the acceptance of online teaching with the colleagues is quite low. So most colleagues say we have to see the students, we need this face-to-face concept. Somehow they didn't realize that you actually see the students in video conferences, but well, so we are forced to turn back to face-to-face teaching. And actually in the moment, this causes lots of dropouts. In school, in school, the situation is similar, but the difference is I think most schools weren't that well equipped and hadn't the resources. Well, my university sets up lots of servers and online services for online teaching, so we didn't have really problems by turning our teaching to online teaching. Usually we have courses that the students need to read a lot, they need to prepare papers and stuff like that. So they're learning alone or online most of the time anyway. So the change is rather minor. In schools, the change was rather bigger, and there were lots of irritations about data security and video conferencing at the beginning. So that caused quite a bit of issues and kept schools from effectively turning to online teaching and learning.
Christian, just one last question. You have some comments in chat you will see afterwards, and our colleagues are grateful for your contribution. So the last question, and I ask you really for a short answer, is from Damir from Croatia. Do you think that the specificities of the generations to which the curriculum applies should also be taken into account? Perhaps we approach them completely for their meaning with an outdated concept. Maybe it is good for their engagement to inject creativity through the media and channels that are close to them. For instance, young people don't read, perhaps, to treat books as a podcast genres or audio segments. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, the specificity of the generations to which the curriculum applies. Quite interesting. But in education and considerably in teaching and learning, we usually start with taking a look at the students and analyze the situation. And then we try to connect what we teach to their experiences. But the content does not change that fast. One simple example, an important element of the media structure, as I said in the talk, is attention. In earlier times, the attention was measured in the numbers newspapers are printed in. Then with TV, the rate of people that turn on the program was the important measurement. Now the click rate is the important measurement. So that the example changed, but the structure is the same. So what we have to change is take a look at the current experiences and the examples that are relevant to illustrate the terms, and then in most cases continue to communicate the relevant concepts.
Thank you once again, Christian. And now after, yes, please.
One sentence again. I don't buy the argument that the world is changing so fast. Computer technology has been conceptualized in 1936 by Alan Turing, and the structure is still the same. No changes. So it does not really, if you want to understand the structure, you can still read Turing.
Thanks a lot. I'm sure we will discuss it afterwards in other sessions as well. And after Germany, after Austria, we are flying to Belgium. Pieter, are you here with us? Is everything ready for your contribution?
Yes, almost.
As I said, it's interesting to learn that you have background in history, geography, and political science. We mentioned political approach just a few minutes ago in Austria. I hope that you can contribute in this relation as well.
All right. Okay, I have to. So normally you would be able to see my
yes, we see
screen now. Okay, very good.
It's okay.
Yes. I sorry, I did miss your last question. Can you repeat it, please?
I was referring to the political context mentioned by Christian as important.
Okay, yeah, it is important here as well, but we are a little bit behind. I think we don't have the that advantage in policy on digital literacy as I've been hearing from Christian. So we have been looking for our own way a little bit here in Belgium, but we do have the support of Andy and his media ways, as mentioned by Hans already. Okay, I would like to bring a story about bridging the gap between theory and classroom application. That's, I think, really the purpose, really the aim of what we're doing in our teacher training, because there is a lot of information, a lot of expertise, a lot of theory on that, as stated in our part of Belgium country, we only have about 3 years and 180 ECTS to bring all the information, all the knowledge on being a teacher to our students. So to give you an idea of our context, our primary school teachers are generalists, so they have to teach every course and all area of learning, mathematics, the languages and so on, but also that digital literacy aspect. And so what we bring is a very broad and general teacher training for primary education. So that's something to take with you as a participant. I'm really talking about primary education, not really about secondary or preschool education in our in this example. We do have media ways. It's the Flemish Knowledge Center on digital and media literacy. Hans Magnus already talked about it, and Andy de Mullenaar is present as well. And what is very interesting is they have a competence model. I think you will find the link to that competence model in the chat room. It is in Dutch, but it might be very interesting to take a look and try to translate with the tools available. It's a very interesting and a very broad approach to media literacy. Our students, we do have two big groups of students. First of all, we have students, we call them generation students. They are approximately 18 years old, and they are doing this as a first choice towards their professional life. And because of their age, they are in general good in communication and in interaction. That's also something I'm reading in the Apenstartjaren research project, which was mentioned as well by Hans Martens. And what we see as well is that other skills are a little bit weaker. So that's something that we have to take with us while developing our course and our topics on digital literacy. We also have what we call lateral entrants. So people who have already a degree, a bachelor degree, master degree. They are older, they are a little bit more mature mostly. And their vision and their expertise on digital literacy is very, very variable. So it's really from individual to individual. Some of them are scared of digital world. Some of them are very, very handy with all the aspects of digital literacy. Another aspect I would like to mention is who are our pupils. There's a big difference between the different pupils in our primary school. Kids from 6 years old, yeah, they have different ideas. They don't really they are interested, and they are a lot of they've been viewing a lot of clips on YouTube and so on. But that's something different than kids from 11, 12 years old. We started to use the concept of digital puberty, and digital puberty is the moment that children are using all social media and all the digital aspects as a youngster, and that digital puberty is at age of 10. So that's quite early. That's really in our public of primary school. So we really have to pay attention to digital literacy in primary education. But also one of the conclusions of this research aspect is that there is really a problem in education, and definitely in primary education. We really do need to pay more attention to digital literacy in primary school. So that's a little bit the context of our system. And so what we want to do in our teacher training is to be the bridge, to really try to offer our students a way to handle with this topic. And so we have been I will go back a little bit. We had a recent curriculum reform, and because there's not really a Flemish from the Flemish Department of Education, that's not really very specific outcomes that we have to obtain. We have been thinking ourselves how to work on this topic. And so what we did before this reform is that there was an expert coming in all courses and helping the lecturer to translate their expertise and their content to the digital aspects of life. But what we saw that was that there's not really a clear story. So the students didn't see a clear line through to that digital literacy. And also there was no solid foundation to build on. So we had to find another way. And what we did is we developed our learning outcomes, and we really pointed forward that we need something like a learning outcome that's about digital literacy. So what you see here is we use some fundamental attitudes. We see some roles for our students, and we also think they need some competences. And one of their roles is that they have to be a content expert. So they are taught on what it is, digital literacy, what is media literacy, what is privacy. So all those knowledge, all that knowledge and all those insights are really there for them to learn and to study, but also we see it as a competence to be digital literate. So it really is important that the student has a kind of attitude, an open attitude towards digital literacy. So those are two very important roles, and I think it's maybe a little bit an answer to what Christian said in the earlier talk. It's not only using media as a tool, but also having a critical reflection to it. So we really want to take care of that note. So what we did is we developed a specific course. It's called Digital Literacy itself, and it's a course of 3 ECTS, and it's for all students, generation students, students who are a little bit older, and they can find 2 specific parts. One is about knowledge and getting things, getting familiar with concepts and theory, but also how to do things. So it's a blended course where they have to prepare specific content to then a course, a moment here in a class here in teacher training on campus, and it's a broad spectrum of topics. So it's about digital citizenship, it's about privacy, information literacy, but also about making your own website, how to evaluate digital literacy when using in their own classroom. So that's that specific course. What we also try to do is to integrate aspects of digital literacy into other courses. So some of the courses are compulsory, and we try to use all the digital applications and all the skills and the attitudes as a tool. So for instance, if you're working on a paper on history, you need that critical attitude towards sources. Then it's also a link between those two areas. But we also have some elective courses, for instance, digital storytelling and the reading environment. Those are 2 courses that students can choose when if they're interested. And as you can see, digital storytelling is something really linked to digital literacy as well. But what we really want to do is we want them to guide into the integration to teaching practice. So we are educating new teachers, so they have to show us how they are using all those things about digital literacy into the classroom. So it's a gradual build-up. So first they have to show it under supervision of their lecturer, of their mentor, but finally we really want to see them using it autonomous in their last teaching practice just before graduation. And so it really is important that they achieve the goals, because if they're not, it's difficult to pass. It's one of the aspects where they have to pass to have their degree at the end. And then some of our students are really interested in all things on digital literacy, and so they can choose an internship on a specific topic, and some of them are doing it in a digital context. For instance, last year we had a student who went to a place where a lot of fab labs were the idea of a fab. It was a fab lab actually, and so they were using things to program, to code, to 3D print, and so on. And also we have students who are doing their bachelor thesis on this topic. An example for that, we have a tool to scan a school and to see whether the teachers are keen or not keen on digital literacy. And so they did that scan on the school where they were doing their internship. Okay, but I'm sorry.
Just pay attention to the time, because
okay.
A few more minutes.
2 more minutes. Okay, so that was a few. Sorry, I'm sorry, Igor. And so that was the first part. The second one is the research. So we are participating in a lot of research projects on media literacy, for instance, on media coach, but also how to, for instance, on the if you see the DGIX is we want to take teach digital competences to the next level. And a third part is cooperation between MediaWays and Thomas More. And we want to develop a framework on how to work on media literacy and teacher training. It's once again based on MediaWays competence model, and we are now in the testing phase. So also that is very interesting to see. I would like to end with 3 challenges. It is quite difficult to bring the whole area of digital literacy into the program of students. It's a lot, and we have to teach them a lot. So that's a challenge. On a team level, it's very difficult to show our colleagues and the team how you can integrate everything about digital literacy into their courses and their expertises. And our last challenge is that we want to keep up with this very rapid evolution, the rapid evolution on this topic, and it's not easy because it's also about investments. Some of the things are rather expensive. So yeah, that's something that we also find challenging. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Pieter. We have one first question from Julian. Great to see how much work is done in Flanders. Is this also happening in French? And what plans are there for cross-region work?
That's a good question. Maybe if Andy is here, he has a better view. I don't know the situation in Wallonia. And for my case, there is no cooperation between the Flemish part and the French-speaking part of the country, which is a pity, I think.
Mm-hmm. In your session, you mentioned that the age is important variable in important relation to digital literacy on the example of 18 below and 18 plus. Is there anything else you would like to share in comparison to this? I know that Julian in chat mentioned that they have very good experience working with older seniors. It's becoming very important, especially in this post-pandemic time when we saw so many changes in the last 2 years. What are your experience in this field?
Do I have my experience? So what do you mean between actually the age of the kids and the students, or even elderly people? Or I don't have really a lot of expertise and experiences on that. What I see is that our students have been learning a lot via digital ways because of the Corona situation. So they are really experts in using it. But the next step is rather difficult because I think it's difficult for them to take the next step and to translate all that knowledge and all that expertise they have, all that experience they have into the context of school. So that's something that's interesting. With all with elderly people, I don't have a lot of experience, so that's an interesting idea to work on. So I will write it down and take it with me. Thank you, Igor. And I also for the younger people. It's kind of how they are growing up. So yeah, that's also something that's I think there will be a gap between those who teach and who are a little bit older and try to find the latest insights, and those who are just growing up with it in the new area.
It was interesting to see. One of the outcomes are the content experts. And if I saw the experience we have in Croatia, you have so many new vacancies where they focus precisely on this. They're searching for content managers. So when you focus on content expertise, is it enough?
Enough for our students? Or?
in order to be media literate and to gain all other competences, if you focus just on the content. Some others say that the content is the very heart of everything, that technology is not important anymore.
Yeah, it's a broader discussion. Yes, I think it's the interaction between all the aspects. If you know what the subject is or what the topic is, I think it's easier to obtain skills and also to have a kind of open attitude. So and that for that reason, I think it is important to really help students to learn about this topic. So I think there is an interesting and needed place for that matter. But it's not the only thing. It's not if you have been learning about it and you have the expertise that you will be totally digital literate. So that's not true, I think.
Thanks a lot. And Andy will be happy along with other colleagues from MediaVays. I think they are the most referred to organization when we discuss media literacy. And it's also interesting to say and emphasize once again that Belgium, along with Netherlands, has really, really flourished in this civil society NGO activities, providing support to the pre-service and all other fields of education. So I think it's valuable to mention once again MediaVays. And Andy, I know that you're happy now. Okay, thanks a lot, Pieter. We are now focusing on Spain. I hope that everything is okay and that at the moment we can also say hi to Professor Charo Sádaba Chalezquer. I hope I pronounced the last name correctly. School of Communication, University of Navarra, Pamplona. She's expert in technology communication to adolescents and children. She has experience as a dean, so that's very valuable for us at the moment. And if I recall, she has also a diploma in journalism, which is very interesting background. So Charo, the floor is yours, and thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Igor, and thank you so much for the organizers for inviting me to this very, very interesting roundtable. I have to say that I have learned quite a lot until now. And I have also to confess that I am envy of all of what we have been listening to. And I'm talking from a national perspective, because let me just share my screen, this one. I don't know what, okay. I suppose that you are watching my screen now. Are you?
Yeah, we can see it. You can just set it to full screen.
Okay, I'm trying to. Are you watching it on full screen? No?
No.
No? Okay, I did it, but I don't know where it's.
But it's okay. It's not.
It's okay, yeah. Okay, it's okay. I will keep it this way just to make sure that it works, because if not. As I will try to explain, in the case of the pre-service teacher education in Spain, this is a very challenging challenge, because the main reason is that media literacy never was compulsory according to the Spanish law. It was included somehow in some of the media laws as a recommendation, but it was part of the decision that was put under the shoulders of each regional government to decide if they wanted to push that subject on the curricula, educational curricula, or not. So it implies that, for a long time, of course, in the schools, teachers and passionate teachers have been using media. And I love that distinction of learning through media, with media. And so they have been using media to teach students some things. They have also working about how media work, trying to teach students. But at the same time, being a transversal and non-mandatory, non-compulsory subject, it was never paid proper attention. When digital competence arrived to our lives, and according to all these big frameworks and international frameworks we're under at the moment, it made a way into the educational laws. And I think that this is an opportunity. I know that there are big differences, or some differences, significant differences between media and media literacy and digital competence. But trying to see the opportunity, I would say that if we see that the digital competence could also include how to understand the new rules of content and information through media, could be an opportunity to take this into account. The main reason why this is very important, and this is a real challenge, the graph is in Spanish, but you can understand very easily, is this is a very recent research we conducted 3 months ago, asking people, general population in Spain, do you consider that disinformation is a national and a societal problem? The green part of the pie is the yes. Yes, we think that disinformation is a problem. Of course, this is not, we are not different from other countries in the world, but the agreement is quite high. So we are, of course, concerned with disinformation and how this is approaching every age group, also elders, as you mentioned before I go in your question. So some other research that we have conducted lately also pointed out that elders are the main diffusers of disinformation, because sometimes through social media, because when they are more interested in information than the younger generations. And when they receive these pieces of disinformation, they don't know how to check it properly if they are right or wrong. So this is something just to take into account. Besides this strong national concern about disinformation, it's also true that social media and teens and young people are quite familiar with each other, so they have this special relationship. But the main issue here, and when we are talking particularly about young adults that are the students in the pre-service education, the research has also shown that there are some difficulties when they have to transfer the knowledge they have as users to the abilities or their practice as educators. So this difficulty transferring knowledge that we can have, because we are heavy users of platforms or whatever, no? That is not so easy to do, and neither for them, that sometimes we can think that they are quite literate when thinking about the digital platforms. Just a little piece of information about who can be a teacher in Spain. So primary level, it's quite similar to the Belgium scenario that we have already shown, the last presenter. But for the secondary level, any university graduate could be a teacher in Spain if they take the required official master program. And in this particular case, the previous background of this candidate would determine what can they teach. So an engineer can teach some subjects related to technology or science field or whatever. But, so this makes the so what this makes me to offer a consideration. So of course we have to take into account what is being done on the pre-service education, teacher education programs, but it's wider than that, because almost everyone can be a teacher, at least for the secondary level. But this is quite difficult at the moment in this for my country. First of all, because educational laws include, again, digital competence as a transversal skill. And this is something that it could be, for once, is a challenge and an opportunity. But I don't know, what do you think about this? But sometimes we listen this, that when something is of everyone is of no one. No one is their owner. So sometimes we feel that this is what it's going on. So that a transversal skill has a lot of competence with other skills that are transversal or mandatory ones. Again, the challenge is how we are organized as a country. We have 17 regional authorities that have strong competences on the educational curriculum. So there is a national curriculum that is under the Ministry of Education, but then each of the 17 regional authorities have also their own saying about the curriculum in their own part of the country. And sometimes they are moved by some national or cultural approaches or interests. And sometimes they are, of course, interested in the digital competence, but there are not agreement. So it's very difficult to reach a common ground for everyone. The schools of education at the moment are including somehow these subjects on their curricula, mainly on the optional courses. But I think that they are doing the same than the law. So if this is a transversal skill, so it's also transversal in our curricula. So this is the reason why schools of education are not properly offering a strong answer to this situation. So they are relying, or the society is relying quite a lot on the students' abilities and capabilities. And as I have mentioned before, and there are some research in Spain done about this, about the lack of capacity of the young students to transfer their knowledge as users to their practice as teachers. So this is not happening so easily or so or without struggles for themselves. There are a couple of good master programs specialized on media literacy, but they are not the official programs that allow people to access to the teachership. So it's good, and we have very good researchers, and I would say that this is a very research-intensive field in Spain, both in education and media fields. So research is great, is good, has been very intensive during the last years, but it doesn't transfer to the practice, to the real practice. And also we have a particular problem also, is that in this when a communication graduate access to the official program to be a teacher, they are not able to teach some of the courses related to disinformation. For example, it's quite funny, but according to some particular regulations, there are some for example, philosophers or linguistics are more appropriate or are identified as the more relevant figures to do that. So we have a melee here. So it's a kind of, so what we would need to go to the next level. So I think that we are in a good moment now, because this strong concern for disinformation, and at the same time, after COVID, or what COVID has taught us is that digital competence is not something that we can, I don't know, expect that people is going to learn by themselves and that's it. So I think that the momentum is now just to push a little bit, but we need a coordinated strategy, national strategy at all levels. So that universities, but also governments, and trying to make a decision about how to approach this field. No? So I think that you can understand why I am envy after listening to the other speakers. I think that also the communication graduates have a role here in the short term, at least, so they can have perhaps more abilities or capabilities to approach some of these challenges at the moment. And of course, that the schools of education should take this into account in a more brave way. But I think that for them, as for all of us, would be probably when something is considered transversal, they are going to consider it in the same way. So it's difficult to work the other way around. So this is me for at the moment, and I will be happy to answer any.
Thank you, Charo. It was very interesting to see the experience from Spain, and especially the things that we usually forget in our discussions. That's the specifics of each country that we mentioned today. National curriculum, along with regional curriculum, 17 of them for Spain, which is making it more complicated. And what I liked the most about your presentation is that you raised the question of our competences, professors' competences, us who are teaching future teachers. And do you have anything to add in this relation? And how is this changing in the last few years that we saw the question of our competences, self-reflection, evaluation, assessment? This is the word we mentioned a lot today in our session.
Yeah, I was reviewing an article before this session that was published some years ago by some colleagues about the university professors' digital competence in Spain, in the particular case of Spain. So, of course, this is something that should be also addressed. I think that some of us, we think that we know it's like, okay, we know it quite well. Perhaps it's not so good, but of course that this is a very, very important question. And let me I'm just reminding that during the lockdown, I remember I was involved in a research here in my region in Navarra with teachers, secondary level teachers in Navarra, public and private schools. So we asked them to self-assess their digital competence, and that assessment was made before lockdown. And during lockdown, we were discussing about how to go on with the research, and we thought, okay, let's make them reflect about their digital competence once they have had the opportunity to test it in a very real, wild way, of course, but. So it was very, very interesting to read the answers to that question, because they told us, I thought that my competence was lower than it was at the end, but what was the most definitive element for them was the willingness to teach. So like the vocational issue behind the teacher profession. So of course that the teacher in front of a Zoom meeting or whatever platform they were using, and with all the students there, they felt that they knew how to do that because it was their, it was so it was very, very interesting. We are now working on the results of that of the research, because I think it was very, very interesting.
Thank you. We have one question from Christian. Are the programs connected to communication studies or media philosophy?
The master programs I mentioned, one of them is connected to a communication school, and the other one is connected to a school of education. So they are both approaches, and this is also kind of an intellectual battle here in Spain at the moment, who owns this field. So this is the perfect at the moment, and we are settled. So yeah, I think that's.
Thank you a lot for it. Are there any questions at the end of our session? for Charo. I would like to thank you all, especially to the presenters. It was such a great thing to see you and discuss and elaborate further and see different experiences we have from all the countries that we presented today, Belgium, Austria, Germany, Spain. And what I could say maybe as something that we should definitely take on to the next session is that we see changes happening, that we also see that we have new possibilities, but still we need to take into consideration all the specific frames and experiences we have at the national level. And then definitely if we go to the regional level, you can see also some other things that we need to take into account. I'm definitely sure that this has opened so many new questions for me personally. The most interesting is the assessment and professors' competences, just like we discussed, and we are finishing with this great session. I'm inviting you in the same time to join us just 1:30 in the next session, where we will discuss about the possibilities in service learning opportunities. And I'm sure that will be a great session as well, moderated by our colleague Andy. So half an hour break. Thank you all for being here. Stay with us till the very end. The best is yet to come. Thank you once again.